May 29, 1943, 3 a.m., Attu Island, Alaska. Private Joe Martinez heard them before he saw them. Screaming, hundreds of voices, Japanese soldiers charging through the fog, coming straight at American positions on Engineer Hill. This wasn't a normal attack. This was a banzai charge. Every surviving Japanese soldier on the island, over 1,000 men, some armed with rifles, others with bayonets, some with just swords or rocks, all running at American lines in a final suicide attack. Martinez grabbed his machine gun, started firing. Japanese soldiers fell. More kept coming, climbing over bodies, screaming. The fog was so thick he could barely see them until they were right on top of him. All along the American line, the same scene. Japanese troops overrunning positions, hand-to-hand fighting, bayonets, knives, fists. The largest banzai charge of the Pacific War was happening on American soil, on a frozen island most Americans had never heard of. This is the story of the Battle of Attu, the forgotten battle, the only land battle fought on incorporated U.S. territory during World War II. 19 days of combat in Arctic conditions, nearly 4,000 American casualties, and a final banzai charge that became a massacre. Attu Island sits at the western end of the Aleutian chain. Barely 35 miles long, treeless, covered in tundra and volcanic rock. Weather is terrible year-round. Fog, rain, snow, winds over 100 miles per hour. One of the most miserable places on Earth. In June 1942, Japan invaded, part of a larger operation that included the attack on Midway. Japanese forces occupied Attu and nearby Kiska. First time since the War of 1812 that foreign troops occupied American soil. The Japanese garrison on Attu was small, about 2,500 troops. They built fortifications, dug into the hills, prepared defensive positions, and waited. America couldn't ignore Japanese troops on U.S. territory, but Attu was low priority. The battles in the South Pacific were more important. So for nearly a year, the Japanese held Attu unchallenged. By spring 1943, the U.S. was ready to take it back. The 7th Infantry Division was assigned the mission. 11,000 troops, trained for desert warfare in California, now being sent to fight in Arctic conditions. Most had never seen snow. The plan was simple. Amphibious landing, surround the Japanese, force surrender, expected duration 3 days. It would take 19 days and cost thousands of casualties. On May 11th, the invasion began. Landing craft approached through thick fog. Visibility near zero. Ships nearly collided with each other. Troops landed on wrong beaches. The operation was chaos from the start. American troops landed on Attu, expecting light resistance. They got the opposite. Japanese forces were dug into the hills overlooking the beaches. Machine guns, mortars, artillery. They waited until landing craft were committed, then opened fire. The fog helped and hurt. It concealed American movements, but it also made coordination impossible. Units couldn't see each other. Officers couldn't find their men. Entire companies wandered lost in the fog. The terrain was brutal. Steep hills, no trees, just tundra and rocks. Every step, troops sank into muddy ground. Equipment got stuck. Vehicles couldn't move off the beach. Everything had to be carried by hand up muddy slopes under fire. And it was cold. Temperatures near freezing. Constant rain. Troops were soaked within hours, their uniforms designed for temperate climates, not Arctic warfare. Within days, trench foot became epidemic. Frostbite casualties mounted. The Japanese fought from prepared positions, bunkers built into hillsides, camouflaged, nearly invisible in the fog. American troops would advance thinking an area was clear. Then machine guns would open fire from bunkers they'd walked past. Their progress was measured in yards. American units would assault a hill, take heavy casualties, capture it, then discover Japanese troops still held the next hill, and the next. The enemy refused to retreat. Every position was defended to the death. By May 15th, 5 days after landing, American forces had barely advanced inland. Casualties were over 500. The 3-day operation was already a disaster, and the worst was yet to come. The battle devolved into a World War I-style stalemate. American troops assaulted Japanese positions, got pinned down, called for artillery. Artillery couldn't see targets in the fog. Troops tried again, same result. Cold weather injuries outnumbered combat casualties. Trench foot affected hundreds of men, their feet swollen, infected, unable to walk. Frostbite took fingers and toes. Hypothermia killed men who fell asleep in wet clothes. Supply was a nightmare. Everything came across beaches by hand. Ammunition, food, medical supplies. Troops on the front lines went days without hot food. Slept in muddy foxholes. Never got dry. The Japanese were suffering too, cut off from resupply, running low on ammunition and food. But they refused to surrender. Their commander, Colonel Yasuyo Yamasaki, ordered his troops to hold every position. No retreat. Fight to the death. By late May, American forces had pushed the Japanese into a pocket in the northern part of the island. Surrounded. No escape. Artillery pounded their positions. Aircraft bombed when weather permitted. The end was near. But Yamasaki had one final card to play. Rather than surrender, he'd launch a banzai charge. Every able-bodied man would attack, break through American lines, raid supply depots, cause chaos. They'd all die, but they'd die fighting. On May 28, Yamasaki gathered his remaining troops, about 1,000 men, some wounded, most exhausted, low on ammunition. He gave them their final orders. At dawn, they'd attack. For the Emperor, for Japan. They'd show the Americans what Japanese soldiers were made of. May 29, 3 a.m. The Japanese attacked, over 1,000 men charging through fog and darkness, screaming, firing, running at American positions on Engineer Hill and nearby areas. The Americans were caught off guard. Medical tents, supply dumps, artillery positions, command posts, all in the path of the charge. Many were lightly defended. The Japanese overran them. In medical tents, wounded Americans were bayoneted in their cots. Medics were killed trying to defend patients. Doctors died with scalpels in their hands. It was slaughter. The Japanese pushed deep into American rear areas, captured artillery pieces, turned them on American positions, raided supply dumps, set fire to equipment. For several hours, chaos reigned. But the charge couldn't sustain. Japanese troops had limited ammunition. Many had just bayonets or swords. They were outnumbered 10-1. As dawn broke and visibility improved, American firepower took over. Machine guns cut down Japanese soldiers in groups. Artillery fired at point-blank range. Individual battles became massacres. Japanese soldiers with swords charged machine gun nests. They died before getting close. Private Joe Martinez held his position on Engineer Hill, his machine gun overheating from continuous fire. Japanese troops kept coming. He kept firing. When his position was about to be overrun, he stood up and charged alone at the enemy. Killed several before he was killed himself. posthumous Medal of Honor. By mid-morning, May 29, the banzai charge was over. Bodies littered the battlefield. Over 500 Japanese dead, many more wounded. The attack had failed. American lines held. But the cost was high. Over 300 Americans killed or wounded in the attack. Entire units wiped out. Medical personnel massacred. The scene at the overrun medical tents was horrific. Wounded men bayoneted, doctors killed, equipment destroyed. The surviving Japanese retreated to the hills, scattered, disorganized, out of ammunition. American troops hunted them down. No quarter given after the banzai charge and medical tent massacre. It became a killing operation. Some Japanese soldiers committed suicide, grenades, jumping off cliffs, rather than surrender. A few tried to surrender, but were shot by their own officers to prevent it. Colonel Yamasaki died in the charge. Whether killed in combat or by suicide is unclear. His body was found near Engineer Hill. Most of his staff died with him. By May 30th, organized Japanese resistance ended. Small groups of survivors hid in caves. American troops used grenades and explosives to seal caves rather than clear them. Too dangerous after the banzai charge. Only 28 Japanese soldiers were captured alive. Most were wounded and unconscious. Out of 2,500 Japanese troops on Attu, only 28 survived. 99% casualties. They'd fought to near extinction. The Battle of Attu officially ended May 30th. 19 days of combat. American casualties were staggering. Over 550 killed, 1,200 wounded. Another 1,500 cold weather injuries. Nearly 3,500 total casualties out of 11,000 troops. The casualty rate was higher than Iwo Jima, higher than most Pacific battles. All for a frozen island with no strategic value beyond denying it to Japan. The campaign did achieve its goal. Japan lost Attu. When American forces prepared to invade nearby Kiska, the Japanese evacuated under cover of fog. American troops landed on Kiska and found it deserted. The Aleutians were back in American hands, but the price at Attu was terrible. Troops who'd trained for desert warfare fought in Arctic conditions. Cold weather injuries outnumbered combat casualties. The fog and terrain made modern weapons less effective. It became a grinding infantry battle. Lessons were learned. Future Arctic operations received better cold weather gear. Training emphasized cold weather survival. Medical treatment for trench foot and frostbite improved. But those lessons came too late for the men who fought at Attu. The battle received little attention at home, overshadowed by Guadalcanal, by the bomber offensive over Germany, by battles in North Africa. Attu was too remote, too small. Most Americans didn't even know where it was. Today, Attu is abandoned. No permanent residents. The battlefield remains largely untouched. Rusting equipment, shell casings, reminders of 19 days of hell. It's part of the Aleutian World War II National Historic Area. But few visit. Too remote. Too difficult to reach. The battle remains largely forgotten. But for those who fought there, Attu was unforgettable. The cold, the fog, the mud, the banzai charge, the massacre at the medical tents. Memories that haunted survivors for life. Attu proved that Japanese forces would fight to near extinction rather than surrender. That banzai charges, though suicidal, could cause massive casualties. That cold weather warfare required specialized training and equipment. It also proved that no place was too remote for war. That American soil could be invaded. That victory always comes at a cost. Sometimes a terrible cost. Japanese soldiers held a frozen Alaskan island until a final 1,000-man suicide charge. They killed hundreds of Americans, died by the hundreds themselves, all for a worthless piece of tundra that nobody wanted and everybody forgot. That's the story of Attu, the forgotten battle. The bloodiest fight on American soil during World War II. The place where over 3,000 men became casualties fighting for an island that today sits empty and silent, remembered by almost no one except those who fought there and never forgot.